Tonight, on Open Mic Night of the Living Dead, we're talking about curse horror.
Curse horror.
The creature's creeping right behind you. I hope you finally find a little slice of peace and light. 'Cause it comes crashing down tonight. Welcome to the open mic. When we call your name, you'll die. But there's no need to dread. This is the open mic night of the living dead.
That was good, right? Simple. I'm not trying to steal your thing that you do where you do something clever, because then it would just show how unclever I am. And nobody needs that.
For sure.
Thanks.
Who are you?
Hey, I'm Rachel.
And I am John. This is an Encore episode. Last week we did a deep dive on Smile, and next week we will be doing a deep dive on A Quiet Place. But we kind of wanted to extend our conversation about the transferable curse horror. Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah, it is, I think.
That, obviously it's sort of the underlying premise of Smile, and we touched briefly on some of the movies that preceded Smile that sort of have a similar curse.
Speaking of the curse of the cat who has jumped into my lap.
Could she purr any louder?
I don't know. She's going to try. You're a
And
happy kitty.
we're going to tackle sort of what I'm calling the big three, which are all kind of a little bit similar in their underlying premise, which are Smile, It Follows, and The Ring. And then at the end, we might touch on a couple of other films that might be kind of similar, but I was actually impressed at, some people complained that Smile was too derivative. And really, there's only these three films. I mean, unless you, like for The Ring, if you count Ringu, obviously. But really, it's a pretty small body of films that have this premise.
Right. This specific premise. You've got the premise of a contagious curse. There's a lot of curse horror, which we'll talk about, but kind of something that is passed along. These three kind of explore that from a few different directions and perspectives, but are still somehow very distinctly different films.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing, if you are a new listener here on one of these Encore episodes, at the end of the episode, we'll be giving you a studio demo to listen to from one of last week's open mic songs. So stick around to check that out. So first, should we just touch on Smile a little bit longer to kind of get back on our
You're bouncing up and down like
back
you're
on
on a horse?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that like get back on the horse?
No,
Is that?
Well, I guess that's not completely.
I really thought that's what you were going for.
No,
What?
I'm back in our groove.
Back in the groove. You were
Sure.
trying to find the word by jumping around. It looked like, I thought you meant like get back in the saddle. You know what I mean?
Back in the saddle again.
I've
baby.
only ridden horses twice in my life and only once with a saddle.
So informative.
Oh, we should say, I don't think we can talk about this without spoilers. So I think we're probably there's going to be spoilers for all three of these films for sure. We try really hard not to give spoilers, but I think for these three, the only way to talk about them is going to definitely spoil it. So if you haven't seen all of these and that's something that's important to you, then press pause and go watch these movies and then come back and listen once you've watched them.
But
Fair?
we will be at first talking about them individually. So
Yes.
And we'll let you know what movie we're going to talk about. So if you want to fast forward through any of the movies you haven't seen, then that is an option as well. But I agree. Definitely have to hit some spoilers to talk about this. So
Yeah.
Smile. That curse. Fantastic curse. It all sort of starts out, you witness somebody kill themselves in front of you.
Yeah, really watch a traumatic suicide.
And can you kind of give us sort of the basis for the curse in that? Like, what does it mean? What's it about?
What the curse is about? Like, you mean thematically
Yes.
or practically, like how it works? No, so thematically, so the curse in Smile very much represents kind of trauma and how trauma is contagious and can be passed on from one person to another. I think it represents inherited emotional suffering that kind of moves from one person to another, how those who are traumatized often go on to traumatize others or are drawn to traumatic situations, cycles of abuse and isolation, those kinds of things. Is that the answer you were looking for?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And, you know, in this film and in all of the big three, at least, there's really kind of a ticking clock
Yeah.
to that element, which is always, you know, if you're going back to the old Hitchcock films or even older than that, the ticking clock element certainly adds another layer of tension and suspense. And in this film, there's no definitive clock. It's not like you've seen somebody kill themselves, you have this many days, but they did discover that it was like, what, between 4 and 7 days or something like that.
4 to 7 days that all of the previous victims had died.
Right, because they eventually discover that this has been a long chain of these events. And the main character, Rose, does discover that there could be a way out if you murder somebody in front of a witness as opposed to killing yourself in front of a witness, which, you know, all of these seem to have little loopholes here and there to potentially get out of them. And in this case, no bueno. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, the loopholes are a tease, I think.
Yeah. Some characters in these movies implement the loopholes better than others.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, yeah, I think that basically covers Smile. And if you want to hear more about it, we talked about it for 2 hours
Yeah, we did.
last week.
You can check that out.
So definitely give that a listen if you haven't yet. The biggest movie I saw come up in terms of what Smile was a derivative of was It Follows, which is a big favorite of mine. I think that might be the first movie you and I saw together in the theater.
I think you might be right. And we were the only ones in the theater, right?
That's right. I took off my shirt like I always do in those situations because you know what? A little bit of that popcorn butter gets on your chest. Nobody's the wiser. And it doesn't stain your shirt because I tell you one thing. It is hard to get that popcorn butter out of your shirt.
So I've heard.
Do you know why coconut gave it away?
Oh, no.
Do you know why popcorn butter is different and better than just melting butter in your house?
Why?
In your house, in your microwave?
Uh-huh.
It's because it has like coconut oil.
Oh, that makes sense. We could do that.
Yeah. And I think you can also buy specific coconut oil butter that is like movie popcorn butter. I don't know. Don't quote me on this. This is not a hack channel. And by hack, I don't mean like hack like I'm bad at it. Like hack like the internet hacks.
Uh-huh.
Like how to make movie popcorn butter in your microwave kind of hack. Hack.
Although maybe we can start a new video series on our social media, hacks for popcorn.
Wow, it sounds really enthralling the way
Sounds.
Is that how you're going to present it when we do it?
Yeah, there's an audience for everything.
I guess so. Some smaller than others. But anyway, back to It Follows, right? I was talking about that. Oh, yeah, because we went on our date and I had my shirt off. And somehow you stuck around. Your standards had lowered so much by that point. But.
And here we are, 12 years later.
And It Follows is currently on our wheel of horror, which means at any time we could spin it for the next deep dive. So we're not going to go deep into it right now. But in It Follows, basically it's a sexually transmitted curse. The person who is currently infected gets tormented and basically killed
Horribly. Violently.
Unless you pass it on to someone else through the sex.
Yep.
The doing of it.
And I had forgotten, spoilers ahead for all of this, speaking of loopholes, I had forgotten that once the victim dies, that it goes to the previous person.
Right.
So you're never free from this. Like, it always comes after you. Whereas in Smile, if you somehow manage to die by yourself with no witnesses, theoretically, the demon or the entity would be stuck.
Yeah, we don't really know.
We don't know, right? That was the loophole she tried to, like, but the problem is the demon controls your reality, so there's no way you could ever actually do that. But if you could somehow trick the entity into letting you murder yourself, then you would be able to get rid of it. But not so, and it follows. It is inevitable, inexorable, unavoidable, terrifying.
Yes. So, and one of the key differences, other than just the transmission aspect of it, is in Smile, it's a lot more psychological. It's all inside the head of the infected person. And there is a large aspect of that in It Follows. However, like, people around you can witness the effects of sort of the entity, I guess, for better lack of word. So when people start getting attacked by the entity, the character's friends can see it happening. They can't see the actual entity, but like, if the entity was going to pull your hair, for example, they would see your hair being pulled.
Right.
By like a ghost. So, and again, that one doesn't have, from my memory, and I apologize if I get this wrong, hit me up in the comments, but I don't think there's any sort of ticking clock necessarily. Like, I'm not sure there's a timeline.
No, you could, I think, theoretically just run forever.
Right. That's the other thing.
Because it only walks.
It only walks.
But it never stops.
It is the Michael Myers of STDs.
Yes.
But it never stops, and you can, like, I don't know how, they try to figure out if you can get very far away from it, and they never find a successful solution. And of course, these are like people in their late teens, early 20s. So it's not like they can necessarily bankroll a trip to the United Arab Emirates for a weekend to try to get away.
Right. I mean, if you go to the other side of the world, like, and how does it walk across the ocean?
I mean, maybe we get on a plane or something. I don't know.
Great questions.
I've heard rumors that there's going to be a sequel, They Follow, but I haven't seen anything incredibly definitive about that yet. I just hear little murmurs here and there.
Yeah, and I think we don't have to keep getting into this, because eventually when we spin this movie, we will probably talk quite a bit about the world making and the world creation and kind of how the curse functions. But it is interesting. The similarities, I think, have more to do less with kind of the mechanics of the curse and more to do with how it makes you feel, which is hopeless and desperate, and it is completely unavoidable, right? You are just stuck. And that is what is so scary. And I think It Follows also does a good job of building that suspense and dread, although it's been 10 years, 12 years since I've seen it. So I would have to rewatch it with my new horror expert eyes. Can I say that? Is that fair? We're experts?
I'm not sure.
Journeymen, journey people. We know a lot more about horror than the average person.
Certainly.
We've watched a lot more horror movies, and we have a lot more context. So I am curious to rewatch it with those new eyes to see how much, if it still holds up like it does in my memory. But obviously Smile, if you listen to last week's episode, is not my favorite movie because it makes me feel so awful inside. And I don't remember how It Follows. I don't think it made me feel quite as bad. I also didn't watch movies the same way 12 years ago. And we were on one of our first dates, and I was, excited to be hanging out with you. So.
Aw, I was just happy to see the movie with my shirt off.
Shut up.
Well, I watched it, I would say, within the last 6 months because somebody came out with a 4K version. It might have been Lionsgate or something. And I picked that up and was really excited. And I watched it. And there are a couple of moments that give me, like, goosebumps.
Are they jump scares or just, like, dread inducing?
You'll have to tell me when we watch it.
Shut up. I hate jump scares. He knows that.
But the music's so cool in that.
Mm-hmm.
They were doing I can never remember. It's such a cool name too, the people who did the music, but they were doing sort of the 80s synth thing before Stranger Things came along and brought it up. So I really like all of that. And the opening scene is near classic. So if you haven't seen It Follows yet, definitely check it out. And it really fits. How would you describe the difference between the curses of those two movies and why maybe Smile is not as derivative as some people claim?
The curse in Smile is internal. It's inside you, and the world is disturbed like through your eyes. It's how trauma shapes you from the inside, kind of, and shapes the way that you see the world. And It Follows, there's an external thing coming towards you. It's not that there's something inside of you that is slowly taking control. It's something that is coming towards you. That is my first gut reaction to what is the difference between these curses. And I think in Smile, the curse is equally as destructive to you and the person that you pass it to. So unless you go the murder path in Smile, there's not a lot of time for moral or ethical dilemmas, because you really are just going crazy and seeing stuff and are terrified and are terrified all the time. Whereas in It Follows, you have the choice to pass this curse on, and you get to choose who you pass the curse to. And actually, if the people you pass it to keep dying, you have to keep passing the curse on, which I think is a really different, that is a metaphor for the passing on of STIs, right? Or I mean, very clearly it's passed by having sex. So this is very clearly at one level about sexually transmitted infections, but there's choice there and consent, because I don't know, if you have sex with somebody and you know you have a disease and you don't tell them that before, I mean, that's a kind of assault and a rape. And I guess murdering yourself in front of somebody is also an assault. But I feel like there's less choice in Smile about who you pass it to. And I think in It Follows, there is choice. And that has its own kind of dread and horror. How would you make that choice?
Yeah, and I think the other thing too, I agree with all that, obviously, but in Smile, it can alter your reality to a point that you can't recognize it. Basically hallucinations, but like full world building hallucinations, like virtual reality, like they never planned it. While in It Follows, it's much more grounded in regular reality that you have to deal with, which is part of what makes that so individually terrifying. Both of them are equally sort of terrifying in their own way and how they affect your world.
Yeah, they both have that inevitability, but it's not exactly the same. I get why people say they're similar, but I don't think that Smile is as derivative of It Follows as perhaps a surface read would suggest.
I agree. And the third movie in the big three, so if you haven't seen this, it's been 20-something years, so I'm definitely going to probably spoil a couple of things, is The Ring.
Shut your mouth. It's been 20 years. I saw it in the theaters and I remember it vividly. But yeah, I was in college, so that makes sense.
Obviously, The Ring is the American remake of the Japanese film Ringu. I'm specifically talking about The Ring today, though they both are fairly similar. I've only seen Ringu once, I believe. It was super cool. You should definitely check it out, but I'm less familiar with it, so I'm just going to talk to The Ring today specifically for this discussion. Did you see Ringu?
I did see Ringu, but it was during the same period of time. So probably like post-college when I first had my Netflix DVD subscription back in 05, 06. And so it would have been, that was where I could find all my crazy J-horror and Korean horror and weird and Cannibal Holocaust and all the weird things you could not get at Blockbuster back in the day. So, yes, I did watch it. I think it was maybe '07, somewhere between '06 and '07, probably. So 20 years ago as well. And I just remember it didn't hit me the same way that The Ring did, but I remember being kind of sad that I hadn't seen it first because it was much more subtle. Because that's what American movies do, is they kind of hit you in the face with things a lot more when they're remakes. I'm thinking about the Speak No Evil remake. Like they're American movies are a little more in your face in general. Obviously, don't come for me, but I'm saying in general. And with The Ring and Ringu, same deal. Like I think Ringu was a little more understated, and The Ring was absolutely terrifying. I think that's the one I went and watched twice in the same day. I went in the morning and loved it and made a friend go with me to watch it again that night.
So, if you haven't had the privilege of seeing The Ring, I highly recommend it. First of all, definitely sort of a standout from that era, I would say, the early aughts.
Yes.
So, you watch this cassette tape, a videotape. Do you know what that is?
I've heard of it.
You know what it is very
well. Of course,
well.
I know what it is. I'm old.
So before we had DVDs, the cassette tape, cassette video, the VHS, and there was a specific tape that if you watched it, it would trigger the curse in you. You would get a phone call, and the phone call would say 7 days, and that's how long you had to live. And basically, if I remember correctly, as sort of the time goes on, you start to see, like if there's photographs taken of you, your face is all distorted, and that's a sign.
That's right. And then isn't that part of how you die?
Oh, yeah. Well, when you die, here we go, big spoilers. Basically, the tape starts to play wherever you are, I think.
Yeah.
On the TV, you don't have to have it in the player or anything. This is how the curse makes its full circle. You see the well where Samara climbs out of the well and out of your television, and your face gets all weird, and you're dead.
Yeah. Yeah. Quick search explains that very often their faces are distorted in a mask of extreme fear, and they die from fear. So
bad way to go.
Yeah, not great. And of course, I mean, The Ring gave us the iconic image of the girl crawling out of the television. In case you didn't realize that's where that came from, that was nothing. I had never seen anything like that in 2002. That was wild. It was terrifying. Terrifying. But in this conversation, again, how do you pass the curse on?
You can either die of fear 7 days later, but they discover that you can duplicate the tape and show that duplicate to another person. And then the curse is passed on, transferred to that person for their own joy and fun.
So in Smile, once you get the curse, you're completely screwed unless you either murder someone or murder yourself in front of someone. Either way, someone else has to suffer, right? And then you will necessarily suffer either by inflicting that pain on someone else or you'll die horribly. And then it follows, you pass the curse on, but if the other person dies, then it comes back to you. So there's no escape. In The Ring, nobody ever has to die.
Right.
Ever.
I guess so.
Like, if you just
Except
make a copy of the tape and give it to somebody, and you're like, watch this tape so I can live, and then make a copy of it and show it to someone else and you can live.
well, the difference is, I think like a group of people could watch the film in The Ring and like spread all these separate chains.
Okay. Everybody would have to make a copy of it.
Right. And it could be like endless because the specific tape that everybody watched in The Ring, which we don't know if there's more than, well, we know that some people make copies eventually.
Right.
That the copy they watched was just kicking on the shelf at like a motel. And so who knows how many people watched it. And if there could be 10 other tapes out there. There could be 100 other tapes out there at this point. Who knows? But it could start just this.
I see. But you could just tell the person that you're showing the tape to.
Well, ideally, yes. If you're showing the copy of the tape to get out of it.
then you would be like, this is how you get out of it, right? And instead, like,
Unless I'm missing something.
so there's an ethical choice here, like in It Follows, in terms of you get to choose who you pass it on to. I feel like in Smile, there's no choice because you just go crazy and the entity kind of like picks who they're gonna pass it on to, and often picks someone who's also been traumatized or has trauma, right? Like the entity is actively picking its own victims, whereas It Follows, very neutral, very Michael Myers about it all, doesn't care who the victim is, they're just unstoppable. Right. Whereas the entity in Smile, and I think Samara, who is the ghost in The Ring, is more like the ghost in It Follows, or the entity in It Follows, in that she doesn't care who it is. She's coming for you to squeeze your heart and mess up your face. So I don't know. I guess maybe I'm missing something. And again, it has been 24 years since I've seen this movie. So I might have watched it 1 or 2 times since then. But I would have to really dig into that. I'm sure The Ring will eventually make it onto our Wheel of Horror. This is classic, really foundational in the horror genre, right? And so we should probably watch it again soon.
And the thing that, sets The Ring apart on its own is that the videotape is like cursed media, and it came out at an interesting time when really everybody was beginning to have access to the internet. Cell phones were now like becoming fairly common, right?
I mean, yeah, even just having video players, like the cassette tape, the videotape wars of the 80s were over, right? Like
This was
Betamax versus VHS. I know this was the early aughts, but like I had a TV VCR combo in my college dorm room, which I've mentioned before, and so did almost everybody else I knew. So it was kind of like mass available. Plus, you could download things on BitTorrent, or that didn't even exist, on Napster when I was in college, and LimeWire.
But you didn't.
Of course I didn't. That would be awful.
And against the law.
But I'm saying that was the time when like copies of media could be passed along.
Right. And, if somebody was passing it off just to save themselves, who knows if they're telling people. And the internet was not like there weren't really many viral things at that point. So getting the word out there also would have been difficult, especially at that time.
Yeah. There was no YouTube. YouTube might have been real young. I don't remember. But there was not the same kind of stuff. There were message boards where videos were shared and things like that. But I don't think there was, this concept of a cursed video certainly has come up since then. But The Ring really brought it to the mainstream in terms of the horror. The horror.
And like you said, hopefully we'll spin that eventually so we can give it a deep dive. There's plenty to talk about in terms of themes and all of that. It's a very gray movie, so it'd be interesting to talk about that cinematically. But should we just touch a couple of other movies? I don't think that there's anything like those 3 movies. If there are, please send them to me in the comments, because I would love to see them. Like movies about curses that operate that way.
Yeah, I think these 3 really make a nice juxtaposition because it allows us to look at kind of the mechanism of the curse, the morality, the ethicality of the curses, and just how they are similar, and yet each of them is in its own right a really great film.
Because I think there's a million movies out there that could be about curses, but a lot of them are like individualized, right?
Yes.
It's not
specific
a chain.
Curses, and maybe cursed horror is not, or curse horror is not necessarily even, it's really contagious curse horror that we're talking about in depth. But let's talk about some other curse horror while we're at it.
Just for a few minutes.
Yeah, just for a few minutes. But you want to take it away?
Sure. One movie that we've seen, I'm not sure, maybe in the last year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
Sam Raimi's Drag Me to Hell.
Yep.
Do you remember sort of how the curse worked in that movie?
The old lady cursed her to go to hell because she wouldn't give her mortgage or wouldn't pay her loan or something. Oh, an extension on her mortgage. There it is. Yeah, and the curse basically marks someone, and then like in a certain amount of time they get pulled down to hell. So it's got that ticking clock, but it is not transferable.
I don't think that that's true. They did discover, she discovered that she had a cursed item and this might be getting into more spoiler territory, so feel free to skip ahead.
Okay. Yeah.
There's something about the button, and I haven't seen it recent enough to exactly remember. Maybe you do better.
There's a button, and she thinks that she can give the button to somebody else, but discovers that she, in fact, kept the cursed button. Like
Oops.
she transferred it into, but maybe that was part of the curse the whole time. And then, yeah, exactly. So there's a cursed object, and so there is a way. In all of these curse movies, there's a way to end the curse, right? There's some sort of, in Dungeons and Dragons, you just need like some sort of restoration spell.
Well,
Nobody has to get hurt.
The reason this kind of ties into the other movies, though, is that it seems like if you're with the cursed object, you might be able to transfer that object to somebody else, so you're no longer cursed. So
Right.
that is sort of the similar thing, is the potential transferability.
Right. Not contagious exactly. And also the curse doesn't rely on it being transferred. The goal of the curse is to take down the one person. And if you happen to transfer it to save yourself, then good for you and bad for the person you give it to. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I had forgotten about the button, frankly.
What about Talk to Me?
I love that movie, but it makes me feel like shit. A bunch of teenagers become obsessed with using this like hand statue that lets them communicate with the other side. But then our main character becomes emotionally attached to a spirit. She thinks she's talking to her mother, but she's not. And it is, I don't know if that's curse. It's interesting in this conversation because the spirits do get linked to people. It spreads socially, so it's more like viral. Like this game that they're playing at parties becomes viral, right? And it's spread socially. So there's that contagion piece to it, and they become kind of addicted to it. This one has some. I hope we get to do a deep dive on this movie someday. But there's definitely some themes of drug addiction and grief and despair. I mean, there's lots of despair in all of our horror movies, but there's grief and addiction metaphors in this. And those can also be spread socially. Those are often kind of enhanced by our friend groups, right?
Well, and I do think it is talking about viral media as well on the internet, like viral social media too, right? Because everybody's getting obsessed with this and they're sharing videos online and everything.
Right. And so it becomes like this cool thing that they can do. Yeah, that movie's so sad and so good. So good, so sad. What's another curse movie?
Well, is that one that can be spread?
Which? Talk to Me?
Or transferred, I should say. Talk to Me, yeah.
I don't think because I don't think it's actually a curse in the way these other ones are a curse. I think it's an addiction. And so I think the addiction can be broken maybe, except once the spirits have attached to you, I'm not sure if she ever discovers, and she doesn't. She does not. I mean, the way she breaks it is by becoming a spirit herself, right? Or doesn't she save her friend's little brother by killing herself? Isn't that how that works? So I guess there is a way to take it on yourself.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I need to see it again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the way that she ends it. That's the way she saves him, because she's able to see into the spirit world and sees that they're kind of feeding on him. And so they're trying to get her to kill him so that he can join them because they want his soul. And instead she gives them her own. So she breaks it that way. So in that way, it's more like, I don't know, like addiction or like almost like parasite kind of. But yeah, interesting in this conversation. I'm glad you brought it up.
Well, and I think that covers our time for today.
Yeah, no, there's definitely more out there. Lots of curse movies that don't have that contagion aspect, right?
Well, and I think there are several that kind of do as well that we haven't seen, but not to the extent and not at the quality of these other ones. That's the other thing about Smile, It Follows, and The Ring is that they're all super solid movies.
Yeah, really well made movies, well acted, filmed, all the things.
There's a movie I've put on my list to watch called Truth or Dare. It doesn't sound like it's necessarily the greatest movie, but it sounds like that there might be a kind of similar sort of contagious,
interesting,
curse-like thing.
Okay. Yeah, if you watch that, let me know, and maybe we'll check that out. And if anyone's listening and has a suggestion for us about a movie that follows this kind of contagious curse pattern, I think we'd really like to see it, just because we do. I mean, these are 3 really solid movies. And yes, it's because of how they're made, but also because the contagious curse is such a fascinating framework through which to explore other themes and, big questions, which is what the best horror does.
And makes for really scary movies because all 3 of the big 3 are
really
scary.
And scary in a creepy way, not necessarily jump scary, although Smile certainly has its fair share of that, but really kind of viscerally unpleasant and unsettling, which I think is it's powerful when a film can make you feel like that. So should we listen to the music?
Yes, we shall.
And so here is the world debut of the studio demo of John's Smile song.
Again the cracks are forming. It came without a warning. I thought I left it all back in the past, but it snuck right up on me like it never left at all. And now it's like I've been under attack. So it will haunt me, and it is daunting as I become my thoughts. And please excuse me, right now I'm losing as I become my thoughts. Will it last as long as last time? Will it keep me up the whole night? It's a shadow in the corner keeping watch. It won't ask for my forgiveness. It doesn't care that I am in this. It's broken off the key inside the lock. So it will haunt me, and it is daunting as I become my thoughts. And please excuse me, right now I'm losing as I become my thoughts. It takes more than a couple deep breaths to get me out of my head. It's never done but easier said when I'm hanging on by a thread. I'm hanging on. So it will haunt me, and it is daunting as I become my thoughts. And please excuse me, right now I'm losing. Maybe someday the wires will come uncrossed. Again the cracks are forming.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us as usual. You can find us on social media at OMNLD Pod.
'Tis true.
We're in all the places. Check us out. Instagram, the Tiki-Takis.
Mm-hmm.
The
YouTube.
The Ubi-Tubies.
Ubi-tubies. Do we have to spin for anything? Don't we
Yeah.
have to?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I didn't know. You sounded like we were saying goodbye, and I thought we had something to fill.
Yeah. I was going to say, but before we go,
Okay, I didn't wait long enough. Apologies.
didn't wait long enough. You just assume I'm rushing out of here. But guess what I'm going to do when we're done with this? I'm going to lie down and not think about anything.
Great.
I'm going to think about absolutely nothing. Sing it again. All right. Well, like we mentioned before, if you're a new listener, we have what is called the Wheel of Horror. It always contains 13 movies on it. It is how we randomly select the next film we're going to do a deep dive on. Like I also mentioned, next week we'll be doing our deep dive on A Quiet Place, which I'm excited about.
Me too.
But that means that our Wheel of Horror has a hole in it where A Quiet Place once was. So I'm going to spin what I call the feeder wheel. It's probably got about 40 horror movies on it. And whatever it lands on, I'm adding it to the wheel of horror.
Woohoo.
Here we go. It's spinning. You can tell by the sound that it's making. That is the sound of the spinning. What is joining the wheel? Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, yes. Very, very excited.
It is among my favoritist of favorite horror movies.
Yeah.
It does have some, questionable
Provenance,
which if we spin this movie at some point, we can discuss that.
We will. And I think there's a really interesting conversation about artist and art and all of that this movie will open up, in addition to all of the great things that the film itself, just as a standalone piece of art, brings up. It's a really great movie, and I can't wait to watch it again when we spin it. But there's 12 other movies on that wheel, John.
Just to catch you up, at the end of A Quiet Place, we'll be spinning this wheel again, and the possible movies we could end up doing next are A Nightmare on Elm Street, Pieces, The Strangers, Sleepaway Camp, Carrie, Audition, Rosemary's Baby, Alien, Weapons, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Child's Play, 30 Days of Night, and It Follows. And of course, there's also the ever-elusive sequel spot. Now there's 3 of them. I've added 3 sequel spots to try to increase our odds of spinning a sequel. Because eventually we'd like to cover the sequels of at least some of these movies that we've covered in the past.
Right. And we have watched quite a few movies that have sequels that are really good and that deserve them. We are, at this point, what number movie is this? So A Quiet Place will be our 20th movie that we have done a deep dive on. And so we've watched 20 movies, and of those movies, I'm pretty sure almost all of them have, actually, I think it would be easier to say which ones don't have sequels. And I think Sinners, there's no sequel to The Thing, right? There's a remake, but no sequel.
Right.
So other than that, yeah, almost every movie we've watched has a sequel.
That doesn't mean they'll all be on there necessarily.
Totally. But there's a lot of good sequels out there that we would love to get to.
And also, if you missed our announcement last week, in July, partially because it's kind of like Shark Month, but also because it takes place around the 4th of July, we'll be covering the movie Jaws in a 2-part Jawsy episode.
Jawsy episode.
So,
yes.
Purchase your scuba gear online. Call, what's the guy's name? Oh my God. Richard Dreyfuss. Call him.
Call Richard Dreyfuss. Get on that.
Call him.
Well, you've got 2 months to watch it, really. So you have time. If you haven't seen Jaws, we're really looking forward to that double episode and going real deep on one of our faves. So yeah, I think that's it for today. Thanks for hanging out.
Bye.
See ya.